The Sacred Forest of the Spring Water, Part 2. The ritual walks in Colomos 2 continued during November, December, January and February, the days 12th and 21st of every month, under the direction of Tania, Agustin, Paloma and Samuel, without greater misfortunes, except for the habitual variations in speed and rhythm due to the accumulated energetic garbage in this periphery, which happened less frequently with every new walk. As a consequence, the group Don Uriel began to perceive the forest every time more alive and to have lucky encounters with some species of its fauna whose inhabitants, surely curious of our regular presence, came out to watch us. Another element felt by our group was the perception of certain loving energy and the unmistakable sensation of acceptance that we received from our surroundings. It was as if the whole forest was sheltering us and protecting us with a special energy. The bordering long walks. I had the task of leading the ceremonial walk on February the 21st, and we initiated activities at 6 a.m. in an extraordinary cold morning. After praying in front of the green elder at the central zone of the sacred forest, we left in a rush towards its second section, looking to get a little warm through a vigorous walking in course to our destiny. Not even the 20 minutes that took us to enter into the zone of Colomos 2 were enough to help us gain some internal heat in that frozen morning of winter, in which we were all sorry not to be more covered in the intense cold that we felt. Nevertheless, something extraordinary happened, because as soon as we took our first steps inside the peripheral zone that constituted its energetic belt, a very pleasant heat let itself feel in the surroundings. Everything seemed to affirm that the energy belt was very clean and working to its full capacity, because journeying through it gave us vigor and protection against the cold. Surprised about what we all surely perceived at those moments, I tried turning aside for some moments with the group, leaving the peripheral zone a few meters towards my immediate right, and the intense cold started again. Reassured by the discovery, I returned immediately with my column into the energy belt, and the cold disappeared completely. We had succeeded. That was the signal. It meant that we managed to restore and clean of dirt the energetic circle that surrounds Colomos 2 in its periphery. Journeying through all the route by almost 2.5 hours was a true delight, in spite of the intense cold prevailing in the forest due to the early hour of the morning. All my companions smiled satisfied while walking, and in that memorable day the whole forest walked with us, because we could perceive land-dwelling and winged animals around us in great gibberish. The inhabitants of the sacred forest were aware of our work, and they celebrated it with us, participating in our joy. Tired but satisfied, we return with respect into the zone where the green elder is located. In that special place, we express our gratefulness and shared our joy for the feat accomplished when something extraordinary happened, because once Paloma gave thanks with all her heart to our Mother Mary of Zapopan for her invaluable aid, a strong wind came in all around us as an unmistakable signal of receipt from the spirit of the sacred forest. Now we only needed to link the energetic peripheries of both sections to achieve the goal of protecting ritual and energetically the entire forest of Los Colomos. Request of help. In a group meeting and by common agreement, the group Don Uriel decided to wait to perform the ritual walk that would unite the two sections of the forest until March 21st, a month of distance away. This would allow us to work during that day of spiritual opportunity in which a special energy descends down from the cosmos for the benefit of all our territory during the spring equinox. Instead of walking in the forest, we decided to pray during March 12 in the Basilica of Zapopan to ask our dear Generala, Mother Mary of Zapopan, for inspiration to achieve the conclusion of our work in the best suitable way for the forest. The peripheral and energetic circles of the two sections of the forest, Colomos 1 and Colomos 2, were clean already and with capacity to protect its surroundings. However, the only guarantee of protection of the entire sacred forest of the spring water was to be able to unite its two peripheries in a single one, walking ceremonially by this new largest periphery to generate a single new energetic circle of protection. Nevertheless, one thing was to walk the two sections uniting them in a single periphery, and the other was to achieve the feat that required that the energy of both peripheries could circulate in the new energetic circle shaped by our walking. Consequently, we attended Mass at 7 a.m. March the 12th with the best of our attention and inner silence to listen to our Mother Mary that we knew would not abandon us. After a beautiful religious celebration, the group Don Uriel made an unexpected group reunion in the atrium of the Basilica to share impressions. You know what? I was receiving constantly the number 13 in Mass, I commented. Well, I was receiving also a number, the number 12, which is peculiar, no? Tanya completed. I was constantly thinking about all our friends who have always supported our work, Samuel added. Paloma, with tears in her eyes, affirmed, Mother Mary asked us to take her with us in our walk. There were no more comments, only silence and the group commitment to leave those impressions to settle in our hearts and the promise to continue praying until we could meet again at our group reunion the following day, that was a Wednesday. Silent walks. The following day at 7 o'clock in the evening, we started our group reunion and ritual work. Once our entrance ritual disposition and respectful greeting of the sacred elements of both Mexican traditions was completed, we decided to present to the sacred elements the questions that were crowded in our minds. We bestowed each question with one of the properties of a sacred element. That is to say, the element air will represent the number 13. The good friends will represent the element earth. The element fire would represent the number 12, and the element water would represent the Basilica of Zapopan. Next, we decided to perform a brief meditation to listen in our hearts the message transmitted by each element to every person that had originally received a message from the Zapopan the past 12th of March. Thus, Agustin would hope to receive inspiration about the number 13, Samuel about the good friends, Tania about the number 12, and Paloma about the Basilica or Cathedral of Zapopan. The result was surprising and revealing because when we finished our meditation, the message of our dear Generala could be deciphered suitably, and the strategy suggested by her intervention understood thanks to the valuable aid of the sacred elements we had in front of us. The first one to speak was Samuel. It was clear to me that we should ask for the help of the prayer and the silence of all the good friends who always have supported our work of spiritual ecology, especially at the moment at which we would be performing our ritual walk. I'm convinced that it will contribute to achieve our objective, he pointed out. Next, Tania commented, I clearly saw the meaning of the number 12. We must start our ceremonial long walk in Los Colomos at this hour, at the exact time of the spring equinox, 12 noon, because this is the time when the fire represented by the energy of the sun will be descending into our hemisphere. It has a lot of sense, no? When her turn arrived, Paloma said, Our sister Water helped me to understand why and how we must carry Mother Mary of Zapopan with us in March the 21st. First, she wants to walk with us because being one of her manifestations, that of a protector deity, her energy of a feminine nature is compatible with the underground spring water of the sacred forest, and her presence will cleanse any obstacle, purifying us as well. Moreover, she continued, by the simple fact of being with us, her presence will make possible what we cannot do, to initiate the movement of the energy of both peripheral circles into a single one. Second, although our Mother knows that we have her in our hearts and that we can take with us her sacred image, she wants to be present walking also, and for this it will be necessary that her energy can walk with us. Consequently, we must work as soon as possible in the avenue Eva Briceño that connects the Basilica with the forest of Los Colomos, with a special emphasis in the crossing of Big Patria Avenue to create an energetic bridge and connect her shrine with the sacred forest. If we can make it, nothing will be able to stop us. After a brief silence caused by the impact that in all of us had the extraordinary perception of Paloma, it was my turn to speak. At the beginning I did not understand the nature of the vision that our brother Air provided generously for me to help us understand the meaning of the number 13 and the silent march in Mexico City of September 13th, isn't it? Paloma said. Exactly, I answered with relief, and it means that we must look for a way to walk in a total and absolute silence during the long journey. Good, said Tanya with her habitual optimism. What do you guys think if we start preparing instead the way for our Generala to Los Colomos? What have you thought about this matter? She asked Paloma directly. Paloma was happy with the question because she already had a good idea at those moments of what we should do, and she answered, as you know, the Avenue Eva Briseño that connects directly the Zapopan Basilica with the forest of Los Colomos has plenty of energetic garbage, and I don't believe that it is as simple as to walk it a single time to clean it, especially in the case of our group, because of the fact that we are far from being wide awake and do not have the energy necessary to make the cleansing in just a few attempts. For that reason, I consider that in our case, we're going to have to work extra hours and we barely have enough time to make it. Then this will be the strategy, she continued. Without considering March 13, which is today, we will have to walk during 7 days in a row, starting from the 14th and ending in March the 20th. We will walk the route from the Basilica to the sacred forest of the spring water during 7 times every day and without interruption through the Avenue Eva Briseño and in complete silence. Starting in the Basilica, touching the forest and ending in the Basilica again, will complete every circuit. Listen, asked Tanya, but to what extent we will enter into the forest of Los Colomos? Only into its entrance? Before the silence of Paloma, and remembering that the ahuehuetes are a particular tree species that we recognize in the forest of Los Colomos, thanks to previous ceremonial walks, I consider prudent to suggest. What do you think if we walk as far as the big ahuehuete that is at about 100 meters of the entrance of Patria Avenue? Very good idea, pointed Samuel. Paloma smiled, pleased. Now, everything was ready and we only needed, after a good rest, to initiate activities March the 24th in the early morning. 7 days of preparation. The next day, 14th of March, at 7 o'clock in the morning, and after a brief prayer of dedication of our work at the feet of Mother Mary of Zapopan, we left in a rush to the sacred forest of the spring water. We had decided to repeat mentally, while walking, a small prayer of only a few phrases that ask for the constant company of the Zapopana. Thanks to the excellent suggestion of Tanya, who received this prayer in her heart while she placidly slept the previous night. When crossing Patria Avenue, we would intensify at maximum the fervor of our prayers, but without losing sight of the cars that circulated. Once in the forest of Los Colomos and when arriving to the selected ahuehuete, we would surround it with respect, scratching with smoothness its trunk to undertake the return immediately after in course back to the Basilica of Zapopan. Once arrived at the Basilica, concluding one circuit, we would enter briefly to its interior and we would kneel for some brief instants to watch in silence the sacred image of our Mother Mary, make the sign of the cross over, and returned to the sacred forest of the spring water. The cleansing walks were made from the 14th to the 20th of March according to plan, fulfilling our task of 7 daily complete circuits. Our main intention was to help clean the connecting line between the Basilica and the forest of Los Colomos and establish an energetic link among our dear Generala and the sacred forest of the spring water. However, our generous mother gave us all the gift of a more and more increased capacity as we accumulated circuits and days of walking to enter individually and as a group into an individual inner silence with certain facility and enough depth. A situation that attracted powerfully our attention took place at the 7th day of our walks, and when we were on the verge of concluding our 49th circuit of the week. When visiting the Ahuehuete for the last time and surrounding it with respect, an enormous babel was taking place above our heads in the top of the tree among a good number of birds that left its branches like an operator's winged explosion and in all directions in course to the forest. The event took us by surprise, filling us with an enormous hope, because we sensed immediately when concluding our work that the forest, through its green representatives, was recognizing our efforts by commanding its winged messengers to interconnect to the whole forest the good news of the now constant presence of the energy of the Sapopana. When we concluded our cleansing work and returned from the sacred forest of the spring water for the last time to the Basilica, we entered into her sacred shrine and prostrated ourselves at the feet of our Generala of Zapopan. Once there, the Mother Mary gave us generous and enormous effluvium of energy that we all perceived as a testimony that did not left any doubt that our work had obtained its objective, having repaid us 100 to 1 the vigor and the energy we invested in the task. Messengers of the Sun. The sun was at the zenith March the 21st when, leaning briefly our foreheads in the enormous trunk of the green elder of the sacred forest of the spring water, we kept a respectful silence to wish all kinds of blessings from our hearts to the Spirit who animates it. After a prolonged silence, and when we were just about to stand up, we listened to the clear and persuasive voice of Paloma. Today we walk with Mother Mary. She is with us and will guide our hearts and protect our minds. We should never forget that our dear Mother is and has been a walker all her life. She walked long distances whenever she had to serve the highest one from which we all came. Today, we as insignificant servants walk also, but since she walks with us, even we the most irrelevant persons can change the destiny. May her walk be ours, because today we are one with her pure and powerful heart. Let us silently follow Mary, because she follows the Christ silently as well. My brothers, let's go ahead. With flaming stares, 4 spiritual ecologists started in silence the task for which they had prepared. The group Don Uriel did not walk alone, because many friends walked with it through their support in silence from their houses, their works, and their occupations. The secret guardian of the forest of Los Colomos observed us pleased. Mother Mary walked in front of us, blessing everything in that special day. Although the ritual walk of that day was the longest ever attempted, we managed to negotiate all its length in little less than 5 hours, and to our own surprise in a good pace and with a good degree of inner silence. The reason was simple. We prepared well. Contrary to what we expected, and in spite of finding the forest full of visitors that day, walking semi-covered up in its periphery made our passing almost unnoticed. The few groups of people with whom we encountered briefly seemed inexplicably unaware of our presence. Our impressions during the long walk were extraordinarily similar, because we all managed to achieve the vital inner silence without much struggle, and we all noticed a species of lucidity in the atmosphere, as if the path by where we journeyed were brighter than its surroundings, to say it somehow. Another coincident perception was the experience of an extraordinary aliveness in the forest. There was an enormous sacredness in the atmosphere, and even though the trail it was the same, it was now free of accumulated energetic garbage. A little before 5 in the afternoon, we arrived at our departure point. The green elder, who is located in the central part of the forest, was there to welcome us. In a very intuitive and spontaneous way, we all surrounded this magnificent tree, placing our hands and heads in its enormous and vigorous trunk. It was as if we arrived exhausted but happy to fall materially in the arms of our dear brother, who awaited our arrival with its open arms. We remained fused in its love for some time, and there was satisfaction in our faces that were red and burned by the sun. Little by little, almost imperceptibly, but every time with more strength, a smooth breeze began to blow, to become soon an enormous windstorm like I never have seen in the forest, and that even caused shouts of surprise here and there between the forest visitors everywhere. All the trees of the forest that my sight could reach moved from side to side in a joyful dance. We all had tears in our eyes. Our dear Generala, our Mother Mary of Zapopan, had fulfilled her promise. A protective belt surrounded our beloved sacred forest of the spring water, and through its enormous periphery, the energy of its powerful spirit flowed, now generous. Gradually, as it had begun, the strong wind began to lessen and lessen until stopping completely. Still, within our circle, we raised our hands together to the sky in gratefulness, and we left the place one by one. There were no commentaries between us, only silence, because by a fortuitous gift we continued to be immersed in the sacred dimension of the existence. When we arrived to our cars in the parking lot of the forest, we embraced ourselves in brotherly silence. The well-preserved Opel Olympic of Samuel was the first to be started. Paloma and I watched each other's eyes and talked a while in silence. We believed to be serving our dear forest and received from its generosity a 100 to 1. A new forest. After an absence of 5 years, we returned to the forest of Los Colomos to find a very pleasant surprise, because during that time it went through several institutional improvements that revealed the respect and consideration of the importance that this sacred space has for the inhabitants of the city of Guadalajara. The forest of Los Colomos is under the exemplary care and preservation of the group of Guadalajara Rangers. Now, it receives more than 2,000 visitors per day. Another surprise was to find out that in its sacred core, the Mexican flag is present every day. Without a doubt, the fact that attracted more our attention was the joy and light that we could perceive emanating of the forest's powerful spirit. Walking slowly in course to its central part was a true delight, and one wonderful experience that evoked in us memories of our intimacy and interaction with its beautiful spirit, which we treasure in our hearts. After briefly visiting some of the sacred sites located in its central zone and greeting our sister water, we decided to go and say hello to an old and venerated green elder. After some brief moments in which we respectfully asked for permission to be in its presence, we entered under its shadow and located upon its roots that fatherly gave us a good seat. Immediately afterwards, and with the help of the green elder, we talked briefly with our dear and sacred forest of the spring water. Not wanting to disturb its peace and harmonious energy, Paloma and I slowly rose, saying our goodbyes. A strong wind that came out from nowhere surprised us and refreshed us in an affectionate way. Our dear forest also remembered and recognized us, and it had us in its heart. We had established a deep and lasting friendship. We were now all together a part of the single heart that beats powerful, animated by the spirit of Mexico.